Hey everyone, and welcome to What Did I Miss? Once again, I am your host, Plain and Simple Eric. Well, we made it! Not only did we survive 2020, and everyone should take a look in the mirror and be happy about that, but we also got through the third season of Discovery and finally know the full cause of the burn and Discovery's place in this new future after the action-packed season finale, That Hope Is You, Part 2. This also marks the end of 23 straight weeks of new Star Trek episodes that started with the series premiere of Star Trek Lower Decks, which was also the first week of this YouTube channel's existence. This episode of Discovery was a true companion episode to the first part of the episode, which was also the season premiere, and started the thematic vision of the season, which was the connection we feel with others and the world outside, and how it hasn't been affected by the recent world events. It also served as a conclusion to the season, as it included a final showdown with the season's villain Osira and the Emerald Chain, but also put a face and history to the cause of the burn that I will discuss after the weekly spoiler warning. But in my humble opinion, of the two story threads that were closed in this episode, I thought one was done very well, and the other, while not exactly what I envisioned, was given a bit more meaning by the end of the episode. Unlike this year's predecessor, Lower Decks, I don't think that the second half of the season of Discovery was stronger or as strong as the first, but that could be just because I'm a fan and came up with a reason for the burn that I believe is more interesting than what we got. So yeah, I guess I am that guy. But let me know in the comments, how do you feel about this season and what are you looking forward to next season? I thought the end of the episode did leave open some interesting possibilities that I will go into in this video, but it will also be putting out a season 4 Discovery Theory video that I will release next week. So be sure to smash that like button and the subscribe bell so you're not asking, what did I miss? The funny looking truck means we are in orange alert, and spoilers are coming for this episode as well as this season of Discovery. The episode begins with Dr. Culber, Seru, and Su'Kal on the dilithium planet as Culber watches a simulation of a Gormagander fly by above him. The Gormagander was shown in the first season Mud episode, but Tilly also accidentally ate some at the Orion market last season. Both he and Seru look like they are trying out to be the next Freddy Krueger, as the radiation is taking its toll on them at an even greater pace, as Culber deduces that Su'Kal's outburst in the last episode damaged the ship. Seru is still trying to get Su'Kal to willingly turn off the simulation, but he is scared of leaving the only world he knows. I really like these scenes with Su'Kal in this episode for a few reasons. One, I think the actor who played him, Bill Irwin, did a fantastic job, and I hope that he becomes a frequent guest star in the future. I mentioned in my video after his first appearance that the actor has a long career of being in a lot of things, such as being Mr. Noodle on Sesame Street. Second, I like how Su'Kal's story is a personification of the anxiety a lot of people will and do currently feel about getting back out into the real world after being cut off for so long. Many people, like myself, have been in bubbles for close to a year, and while I'm sure none of us wanted to be like this forever, the prospect of creating a new normal for those of us that were already introverted can be a daunting prospect. If you have feelings like this, I encourage you to share them with someone else, because I bet you will be surprised how they feel as well. Adira arrives and they explain that they brought medicine and beam down, but did not ask for permission, which Seru obviously is not a fan of. The species that Adira appears to be is a Zahin, and is the same race as Poe, who was featured in the second season finale as well as the first short trek, Runaway. Culber explains that the pills will buy them some time, and surprisingly Gray, who now looks like a Vulcan, comes around the corner and now everyone can see them. They immediately hug Dr. Culber, which makes sense because Gray is obviously not comfortable being a non-corporeal being and is longing for familiar contact again. We cut to the battle at Federation headquarters. Admiral Vance and Kovich are at the command center and are attacking both the Discovery as well as Osira's ship, the Viridian. I think it is interesting that Kovich is there, and I'm almost starting to believe that he is this mysterious Federation president. Also, Osira knows exactly where to hit the Federation's hidden shield power source, so I don't think there can be any argument now that there is a spy in the Federation that was giving information to the Emerald Chain. I think it is still Willa, who seems to be Admiral Vance's second in command, but let me know in the comments if you think there's a spy and who it could be. It sounds like the phaser fire from the ships are what has been used since the first Starship Enterprise, and I love little nods like that, like the doors swooshing when they open and close. We then cut to the bridge of the Discovery, where Osira is commanding the battle from her side. She intends to have Book tell her where the dilithium planet is, and asks Aurelio, who is played by Kenneth Michel, to bring truth serum. I don't understand why they didn't use the same device they use on Stamets on Book to get him to show them where the planet is. But Zara is intent on making Book talk and tells him that he is going to sing like an Alcorian Sourhawk. This is actually another callback to the short trek Calypso, in that the main character Kraft is from a planet named Alcor 4 and asks Zora to simulate an Alcorian Sourhawk so that he feels like he is closer to home. Osira calls for reinforcements, as it is obvious that there is a force on the ship trying to take it back. She calls out for her troops to retreat from those areas, and she slowly lets the atmosphere and breathable air out from the lower decks. For one, I thought this plan was very similar to one from Total Recall, but I also wonder if it is a shot at their sister show Lower Decks as well. The whole B-plot of Tilly and the bridge crew with the Dot 23 robots seemed very much like something we would see on that show. Stamets arrives at the command center and begs the Admiral to stop the attack, but the Admiral states that he believes Burnham made the right call in blowing him out of the Discovery so that Osyraa could not properly use the spore drive. I think that Stamets will definitely carry this resentment towards Burnham into next season, even given the events of the episode. As the Viridian breaks through the shield barrier, the fleet from Navarre arrives to help the Federation. This was obviously caused by Michael reaching out to her mother over subspace in the last episode. Osyraa intends to detonate pesticides as a weapon of mass destruction, but Michael tries to make a deal with both her and Vance. The Admiral doesn't like it, but he bets on her, which is a big change from where their relationship started. The gambit works and the battle ends, but Osyraa is not willing to turn life support back on and orders Burnham off her bridge. Given what happens at the end of the episode, I think the fact that Osyraa continually calls it her bridge in front of Tilly and Burnham makes a lot of sense thematically, as it is if to point out that she took the bridge from one woman but in the end is bested by another. Back on the planet, Seru continues to speak with Su'Kal and try to break through by explaining to him over a Kelpian meal what the outside is. Seru has spoken many times before about how important meals are to the Kelpian culture, and even tried to arrange one earlier this season with the crew. We cut back to the ship, and I love the visual of them within the warp field, as you could see what looked like a black hole horizon on each end of the spectrum. Aurelio is arguing with Zara and then Osyraa about how to interrogate Book, and she explains that she knows Burnham will not let Book get seriously hurt because Michael went to Hunhow to save him from her nephew, which was shown in the events of the 6th episode this season, and then to Quajon to help Book's family, which you saw in the 8th episode of the season. Osyraa is obviously all in on being a villain, as she threatens her once innocent friend Aurelio and allows Zara to interrogate him as he sees fit. I thought this was a great character moment from her, because it shows the DNA of a true villain by first showing that she may have a good heart, but then revealing that this is all a political facade to gain trust from people she needs, but when they cross her, she shows that they mean nothing to her, just like everyone else. Zara taunts Michael by saying she is in a no-win situation, and Michael snaps back that she does not believe in those. This is of course a callback to Star Trek II, in which Kirk reveals that he cheated during the infamous Kobayashi Maru test at the Academy because he did not believe in no-win situations. Osyraa says something that also hits home with Michael after she asks her if she wants to wake up tomorrow knowing she lost everything, which is no doubt how Michael felt in the season premiere and first part of the 2-part episode. She actually pulls a move that looks right out of Kirk's book as she tricks Osyraa into thinking she is helping them, but instead creates a force field barrier between them and ultimately allows for her and Book's escape. Back on the planet, Seru continues to try to make Su'Kal understand what is going on without him causing another catastrophe. Like I mentioned earlier, I really think Bill Irwin nailed this role by portraying a lot of naive innocence, and I really hope he comes back next season. Tilly and the bridge crew are still stuck in the lower decks of the Discovery and trying to formulate a plan. Lieutenant Owo seems to not be as affected by the loss of air as the others, and she explains this is because as a child, she would go diving in the Ogbunke caves, which are located in Nigeria. Michael and Book are still fighting to take back the ship, and Michael sends a coded message to Tilly from a stolen badge. Tilly deduces that Michael wants him to go to a warp nacelle and set off an explosion there that will drop them out of warp. This also means that the dot robots could be irreparably damaged, which I think foreshadows the end of the episode. Back on the planet, the dark creature confronts Seru and Su'Kal and forces them to face his fear, while Culber, Adira, and Gray look for other ways to turn off the holo. Gray agrees to look outside the barrier since they are not corporeal, and I really hope they explain more next season why both Gray and Adira are able to exist here, because when I saw the trailer, I thought it would be only one of them at a time. Culber explains that he believes Su'Kal is a polyploid, which if I remember my freshman biology correctly, just means that he has taken in genetic markers from not only his parents, but another source, in this case the environment. If I am wrong, let me know in the comments, but be nice because I got a D in freshman biology. Culber believes that the massive concentration of radiation, compounded with a large mass of dilithium, which we learn has a connection to subspace, has caused this effect. Adira and Culber presume that because of this connection to subspace, it allowed his outburst to interact with so many vessels and cause the burn. They also understand that if they remove him from the planet, they would no longer be a risk to them, or the universe. Su'Kal is still scared to leave, and Seru explains that because of their new connection, he now has a new family, and Su'Kal needs to depend on them to walk through the door and face his fear. Again, I think this is an allegory to the theme of re-establishing connection with the rest of the world after being cut off for so long. Since she is the only one still standing, Owo takes the bomb to the warp nacelle and believes she is sacrificing herself as she says goodbye to her crewmates and friends. I really thought Owo was going to die here. Michael and Book land in a firefight in what is somewhere in Discovery but looks like a setting out of Blade Runner or something. I thought these cubes were very cool and unexpected, which was like most of the visual accomplishments of the season, and I still think it is the best looking season of Star Trek so far. Michael and Osyraa square off in a true duel at the data core, which I thought was really a good fight. While this is going on, Zara and Book are fighting as well, and I didn't think for a second that a one-handed Zero stood a chance, especially when he started to talk smack about Grudge. As Oo is about to collapse, a DOT robot shows up to assist her. The explosion rocks Discovery out of warp. I don't really understand what happened with Burnham when she got pushed through that programmable matter, but it was cool seeing her shoot blindly and hit Osyra in the head, then call some of it out. Michael is able to take the ship back and tells the crew to report to the bridge, as we see that Oo has survived thanks to the DOT robot. It looks like Discovery has picked up the storyline from Picard of the sentience of artificial life forms, and the DOT robots, and more specifically Zora or the Sphere Data, have shown that, like Data, they have a place in this universe. Back on the bridge, Tilly gives Burnham control of the bridge and Michael tells him the plan. Aurelio believes that Book will be able to control the spore drive due to his ability to connect animals. They plan to detonate the warp core within the Viridian and jump out before it explodes. Burnham instructs Lieutenant Bryce to tell the Voyager J and the fleet to back away from the ship, and it is nice to see that the Voyager is still around after we first saw it in the third episode this season. Back on the planet, Dr. Culber and Seru are still trying to convince Su'Kal to step forward through the door, which will ultimately allow him to turn off the holo and leave the planet. Gray realizes that they will no longer be visible to anyone else after the simulation turns off, and Dr. Culber and Adira pledge to them that they will continue to search for a way to bring them back. I think this will be a huge plot point next season, and I can imagine there being some issues between the relationship of Adira and Gray if they are not able to bring Gray back into the world of the living. They brought Dr. Culber back last season, so I think anything is on the table at this point. I really like this moment in the show, and I only wish that Stamets could have been there too. Su'Kal finally ends the simulation after watching the last moments of his mother's life, which also coincidentally was the moment the burn happened. Believe it or not, the actor playing a young Su'Kal is David Benjamin Tomlinson, the same actor who plays the very adult Linus, as well as various other aliens on Discovery. Su'Kal turns around to see a very Kelpian Seru, and they exchange a greeting native to their culture. Back on Discovery, Book is in the spore drive and finally states his name is based on someone else, which I'm sure is another plotline we'll get into next season. The Discovery jumps just as the warp core detonates and destroys the Viridian. Back on the planet, they are finally able to convince Su'Kal to leave the planet after he realizes that he caused the burn. The Discovery arrives and is able to transport them back onto the ship as the ship on the planet collapses. Next, Burnham gives a voiceover about reconnection in the themes of the season. I think it's very interesting how the show put each character in different circumstances now, given the events of the season, so that each of them must move forward within a new normal that includes new friendships forged from the hardships they have faced. We see that Stamets is very happy to reunite with his family, but still bears some ill will towards Burnham, as I'm sure he does not agree with her decision. I hope that the writers don't make his newfound connection to family a hindrance on his development. We also see that Reno is able to restore a DOT-23 robot, which we already knew at least one would survive because Zora is still active during Calypso. There was a shot in the trailer of Michael speaking to what looked like Zora, but I don't think that scene was used. In the aftermath, it seems that the Federation is now reconnecting with planets like Navarre and Trill, the latter of which has decided to rejoin the Federation. These events began in the 4th episode this season when the crew visited Trill with Adira. I'm sure the planet Trill will be featured next season as the crew tries to bring back Gray. We also learned that Seru has decided to stay on Kaminar to help Su'Kal adjust to his new life. As the show ends, we see Michael reunite with Aditya Sail, who we last saw in the 1st episode this season, and they mirror a handshake they exchanged at the beginning of Michael's journey to reconnect the Federation. It is nice to see him again and that he was promoted to be a lieutenant after holding a seemingly meaningless post for so long. We also get a really cool shot of the crew of Discovery in their new uniforms, and Captain Burnham takes the comm and says what I suppose will be her catchphrase, "Let's fly." I really think the show missed an opportunity here, as I think it would have been really funny if she used one of the phrases that Seru tried earlier in the season. The episode and season ends with a quote directly from Gene Roddenberry, as the show plays a rendition of the famous theme music from the original series. I think the quote serves two purposes. One, of course it is a summation of the theme of the season, but I also think it is a commentary to the people that state that Discovery is not really Star Trek. I swear, I get at least one comment every video that I mention Discovery that Discovery is not really Star Trek for some reason, which I don't really understand, and by that I mean I don't understand why you would seek out a video on YouTube about something you do not like just to tell people about it. But besides the point, I think that the writers of Discovery put this quote intentionally from Gene Roddenberry to show that yes, the show does follow the ideals that Gene Roddenberry believed in. Well, that was everything I saw, but let me know in the comments, what did I miss? Thank you for joining me this season of Discovery, and I'll release a season wrap-up and season 4 theory video next week. So if you'd like to help the channel, smash that like button and the subscribe bell, and I will see you next time on What Did I Miss?